pressure off the edge, and it's intercepted. D'Angelo Ponds roll out the big red carpet. Touchdown, Indiana.
It's time for the big red carpet. Here's your host, Rhett Lewis.
I got to say, I feel like it's never been more fitting to have the name of this show, The Big Red Carpet, because once again, thank you, Guy Haberman, for the call, because it was in a similar atmosphere, although this one certainly took the cake, but it was that punt block and return for a touchdown by D'Angelo Ponds that really rolled out the, shall we say, red out carpet in this one. My goodness, what a weekend, what a night in Bloomington, Indiana. Just kind of been sitting here over the course of the last couple of days, and thank you to everybody for your patience here over the last 24 hours. Had an unexpected illness that took your pal here down for the count for a day, but we're back and we're getting to it here, man. But that was an absolutely insane moment in time to be a part of. I've only watched a very small number of games since I stopped playing in Indiana as a quote unquote fan. And that was just the second time I've been in Memorial Stadium as a fan. I'm absolutely blown away. I just don't have a whole lot of words to describe what it was like. It was, I was just so proud, so grateful to that staff and those players for that night. It was just insane to be a part of. So it was great. And I'm thankful to all the fans that showed up and wore red and stayed through the rain and stayed to celebrate these guys and celebrate this team who so deserved it. Best night in Memorial Stadium history, certainly in my lifetime. And there will be more to come, I think is the way that I leave this thing feeling. And so many people and pundits and external thoughts and opinions about Indiana going into this game and then coming out of this game that have flipped that we'll get to here in a moment. But I just also wanted to make sure you guys as a fan base heard, if you hadn't yet, what Bret Bielema had to say about this game and about the environment at Memorial Stadium. And so I'd love to get to that right now, just to kind of put a bow on what it felt like, not just for us, right, as people who loved Indiana in that game, but on the other sideline and in their minds, what they thought of it. So here we go. Here's Coach Bielema.
You know, I've been around this league a long time, and that was a very, very impressive atmosphere to be in. So good credit to them. And at a loss for words, I mean, I've never been a part of anything like that. You know, the thing that jumped out to me as we began to unfold in the second half was we just didn't have answers for what they were doing, and they kept pouring it on, which was exactly what they should do.
Let that sink in for a minute. One, guy's been around a long time, right? Coached at Wisconsin, now back here coaching in the Big Ten again at Illinois, has played in every one of these, major Big Ten venues, and Memorial Stadium on that night at the Rock was as impressive as it sounded like to me there that Coach Bielema has been a part of. Again, for an opposing coach to say that and to admit that and to give respect to that, I think was pretty incredible. And then the fact that they just couldn't do anything. They just didn't have a way to regroup, to reset, to deal with what Indiana was doing to them on both the offensive and defensive side. And that is a good coaching staff. You go back and listen to our episode last week. We said it. This Bret Bielema is a really good coach. He has a really good coaching staff. This is a good football team in Illinois. And it was just a thorough dismantling, just an absolute takedown of everything that they were on that night in every phase. So we're going to get into the game here a little bit. We'll also get into looking ahead to Iowa, another massive test here and first road test for Indiana in a hostile environment, right? So you'll get a feel for that on the other side of it here this week. But I thought that was really, really kind of just a sight to behold, and then to hear it acknowledged by the opposing coach was something. Now, you've probably been out on social media and looked, at all the different outlets on the web and wherever else that talk about Indiana and talk about what happened last year in the playoff and the one and done and all. there's been a lot of that going around. And so we found just a couple of things that we thought were kind of interesting that we'd maybe just throw up there and take a look at what some of the feelings were about Indiana coming into this game, coming out of this game, and just kind of let those sit. So you're not going to see my face as these throw up, but let's go ahead and, Peter, if we could throw up some of those posts that we've seen here in the hours and days following that win. Here's one from Barstool Illini. Congrats to Indiana. They just won the Super Bowl with 1 trillion pass yards against fourth-string DBs. Now, true, Illinois was down its top defensive back in this game. They did lose another one on a targeting call. That stuff happens within the game. They lost another one due to injury. But let's just also remember, it was not a zillion pass yards. It was just 267. It was 5 touchdowns. It was done very efficiently with 21 to 23 passing for Fernando Mendoza. But anytime you can also rush for over 300 yards for the 4th consecutive game, it's a pretty well-rounded effort, especially when you consider that the contrast in rushing yards for both teams, the difference there was 310 yards. You could measure Illinois' rushing yardage in feet with 6. Next. What do we got, Peter? Oh, okay. Barstool Illini is back for us. Yes, correct. The home field advantage for IU is real. It was real. And again, just the amount of excitement and how loud it was. Aiden Fisher saying at postgame, it was the loudest he'd ever seen the stadium. I just talking to people around the program, during the game and then after the game, they had never seen anything like it. So hat tip to everybody who was in that number and was cheering loudly for the Cream and Crimson. That was fantastic. And it was noticed nationwide. What do we got next, Peter? Illinois fans have turned this off to go play in NCAA football 26 in an alternate universe. Look, yeah, you can set it up however you want. I probably, if I was on the other side of this thing, would have had to turn that thing off at halftime too. It should have been 42-7 at half. Boykin missed the pick 6. That would have gone. I mean, it would have surely been, and I'll get to that play here in a little bit. It was almost a 35-point deficit at the half. Wow. Okay. What do we got next? A couple more of these, and then we'll get to the breakdown here. IU's going to beat us so bad we get out of a football program left. That was not a tweet from last year. I don't think. I think that was recent. All right, one more, Peter. What do we got? Cignetti's a psychopath. I mean, look, I think you just got to respect the fact that he takes joy in removing the joy from the opposite sideline. And if that's a psychopath, then so be it, because I'm one of them too. Because that was awesome. And the fact that he probably could have said a lot more. And I think at one point he turned to Indiana SID Jeff Kegg, who was in the post-game press conference. It was like, I want to say it, but I'm not going to say it. I don't know exactly what he was going to say, but I am very curious. And it was to say that it did not break their will. I think you'd be lying. I mean, a lot of coaches just won't come out and say that, but I think it was true. Just the way that it was played, there was just nothing they could do. And then, it was Bielema, as you heard in this show just a minute ago, saying we just didn't have an answer for it. And it's just, you just get ground and pound. And there was nothing they could do to stop it. It was an onslaught. It was a freight train coming down the tracks out of control. And there was nothing that anybody dressed in orange and blue could do on that night. Indiana was too well prepared, too well coached, too well executed on that night. And we're going to get into all of that for you right now. So let's do it. The block punt. D'Angelo Pons coming off the side right into the punter's foot. I mean, it was textbook taking the punt off his foot. In fact, he beat him so cleanly and got to the punt so cleanly that he was able to sit around and like he couldn't tell where the ball was at first and still had time to then go pick it up, kind of break the punter's tackle and eventually get into the end zone. That set that place ablaze. Like if you weren't in there, I wish everybody could have been inside the rock at that moment because the place went absolutely berserk. And just like it did in the play that we open this show with every week, it set the tone for what was to come. Coach Cignetti said it a number of times. The punt block got us going, and it sure as heck did. And then we get the stop Indiana gets the stop next, and the offense gets the ball. And this was what I thought was effectively the Omar Cooper drive in this one. This comes down, Indiana marches right to around midfield, and they get caught in a 4th and 1 situation. And there was a lot of back and forth there. You saw that Illinois ended up wasting a timeout, I recall. And then they come back out onto the field, and Indiana had sent the punt team out. Punt team comes back. Offense comes back out, and 4th and 1, end up going for it. And you saw this a number of times in this game. You sent Omar Cooper in motion, and then he comes back in almost like with a head of steam, and the ball is snapped, and now he's coming in as a lead blocker. And man, it's not a devastating block, but he essentially gets the yard, right? He makes enough room for the yard on that play to continue that drive. And then he gets paid off for it. He gets an RPO slant, which turns into an explosive play. 20 yards after contact, he's like rumbling. He gets contacted like the 30-yard line, and then still finds his way down to about the 10-yard line after initial contact, which was incredible. Then on the very next play, it's a quick throw. It's almost like a free access throw. It was off coverage. He gets the ball right there. He gets a block by E.J. Williams downfield. Coop breaks the tackle. He tight ropes the sideline, dives to the pylon to the score. That was Omar Cooper's hand, fingerprints, and imprint was all over that drive for Indiana to take the 14-7 lead. We'll get to the touchdown, by the way, for Illinois, which was really their only major source of positivity in this thing. But I thought that was just an excellent drive for a guy who's becoming one of the best receivers in this conference in Omar Cooper. Not just with what he does catching the football, but the run after the catch, and then the dirty, gritty stuff that he can do in the run game when he's asked to do it. Thought that was really big. Okay, Gabe Akis, as we also talked about, was going to be a factor in this game. I certainly thought. He wasn't. And that's a credit to Khalil Benson. It's a credit to Carter Smith. It's a credit to Riley Nowakowski, and anybody who lined up on number 17 in white took care of business. I think he ended up maybe with one pressure in this game, but I don't think he had a hit on Fernando. They did get a little bit of pressure from time to time, especially early, but it didn't phase Fernando. And so I thought that was a really, really big deal for our offense to have that kind of protection and that kind of effort against a guy who is, considered to be one of the better edge rushers in this conference. So I thought that was big. Another couple of plays that I really loved in this game. Omar Cooper, took that huge hit right on one of those in-breaking routes. I think it was a slant, popped right up, but he drew the targeting penalty, and number 10 was disqualified for Illinois. And if you listen to Bielema afterwards, he talked about how that middle field hitter, who was number 10 on that play, that middle field hitter was a strategy for Illinois to deter Indiana from running those RPO slant routes into the middle of the field. Well, Omar takes the huge hit, gets up, says, good, he's fine, we're good. The next drive, they do it again, and this time it's number 0 coming in for the kill shot on Elijah Sarratt, who just bounces off the hit and then goes off and gets more yards after the catch. And I think that's just, you're setting the tone for toughness, right? When they want to, on a play like that, be a deterrent to you to you calling that play, to you running that route and making that catch in the middle of the field, and then you just bounce off it, or you bounce right back up after the hit. There's a psychological toll that ends up taking on the defense. And I thought that was just another one of those ways in which they were like, all right, yeah, sure, give us your best shot. We'll get up and we'll keep moving. And that's what Indiana did all night long. But I thought those two plays in particular were emblematic of that thought process for IU. Next one that I really loved was, look, if you're going to play a ton of man coverage, which Illinois was going to do, it's in their DNA as a defense, and they did it. You got to be ready for pick plays, right? Or, rub plays if you're on the offensive side of the ball, and they come in many different variations. I mentioned in the preview episode last week that I thought their linebackers could be a little bit vulnerable in coverage. So you throw in those rub routes, and now you're giving them obstacles to get through in order to cover a running back out of the backfield. It happened. Riley Nowakowski is in a trips formation as the inside receiver. So they used formation and personnel to get the matchup they wanted on the running back, which was Roman Hemby, on the inside backer. Nowakowski takes off on his inside route. Linebacker runs into him essentially, and Hemby wide open, explosive play. You get another downfield block by Elijah Sarratt that helps Hemby go for another 10 yards. I thought that was excellent design, excellent execution. And again, it's that grittiness, right? It's that toughness. It's that idea that you're going to impose your will on somebody else that we see from the receivers constantly downfield. Sarratt on that one, as I was saying, that allowed him be another 10 yards. That was fantastic. Man, Fernando was stellar in this game. He is now 40 of 43 for 537 yards and 10 touchdowns and 0 interceptions over the last 2 weeks. 21 of 23 completed his last 17 throws in this game against Illinois. He was unstoppable. He was unflappable. He was pinpoint accurate in this game. And in games like this, we said it, one of those things is like when you have opportunities to make plays, you have to make them. You can't overthrow somebody. You can't have a misfire. You can't have a misread. Right? You can't have a missed assignment. Fernando was on it all day long. And again, this goes back to, I think it was the Kennesaw game, I want to say, where we were showing you the video. And some of those throws he was making was just like, they were things of beauty. I mentioned it's like the NFL Films throw, right? Where it's slow-mo and the ball is just rotating perfectly. He had one of those throws on the touchdown in the red zone to E.J. Williams. It's one of my favorite routes as a receiver. It's that end line, kind of back of the end zone type route on an in breaker. And I mean, they drop 8 players into coverage on that route, right? So there's a bunch of Illini defenders in a condensed area, right in the red zone. And he still layers that backline end zone throw just over the defender in front, just out in front of the defender that's trailing EJ. And EJ goes up and makes a beautiful catch. It's just, everything he is doing right now speaks to the development that he has made and that he has committed himself to week over week. And going back to spring, summer, and fall, and the work that he does on a daily basis with Coach Sig, with Coach Whitmer, with Coach Shanahan, and they are just firing on all cylinders right now. I mean, like they are seeing the game together, like they're so connected. It's just been, it's incredible to watch. Like he's just a machine right now. And the way a number of times, I remember we showed you a throw against the Kennesaw State a couple of weeks ago where he's resetting his feet, like one read to the next read to the third read. He did that a couple of times in this game too. And again, that's protection as well. You got to give credit to those guys up front. They were fantastic in this one, but that was, and I think there were one of my favorite moments of this game is we're down in the end zone or in the red zone again. And they just come out. I think it was like either a media timeout or maybe a TV timeout, but like the stadium, PA, they just played some kind of song and everybody was fired up. And I forget exactly what it was, but the offensive linemen are literally telling everyone to be quiet because it's so loud. And look, again, on offense, you want to be a little bit quieter, but I was like, you know what? I don't hate this right now. This is fine. If at some point during my career at Indiana, you'd have told me that we were sitting there trying to tell the crowd to quiet down at home, I'd have been like, you're crazy. Right? That just wasn't in the cards for us then. It is now. Right. And so now we need to become, a slightly more educated fan base, right? And be like, okay, yep. We're going to quiet down when the offense is about to score, right? Offense at work, I think, is what they used to do up at Lucas Oil Stadium when Peyton Manning was there, and at the RCA Dome when it was really loud. I was like, no, we got to be quiet now. But when the defense is on the field in one of these situations, that's when we want to get loud. But for this night, it didn't matter. It was just awesome to hear. So I thought that was a really cool moment. I also posted video of this going back to that Omar Cooper drive I was telling you about on the drive that made it 14-7, but coming out in the second half, first drive, I posted the play on X, Rhett NFL, if you want to go back and look at it. But this was obviously a game plan wrinkle from Coach Shanahan, but we saw it because I highlighted a couple of different times over the last couple of weeks how the receivers are in the run blocking scheme a number of times. They could be at the point of attack. Omar Cooper was the tip of the spear a number of times in this game. And his block on the Kaelon Black 40-yard touchdown run was incredible. Again, this is a 190-pound receiver that's absolutely putting his shoulder and everything he has into a defensive end, outside linebacker type, and Kaelon Black hits that thing just perfectly. I mean, right off Omar's back, and he is essentially into the end zone at that point. So again, just a hat tip to the receiver group, to Omar Cooper as a lead blocker in this one. And then another one. How about this? On Elijah Sarratt's touchdown, he has just an incredible, incredible release on this play. He's in man coverage. And if you're going to play man coverage, you're going to play tight man coverage, you can't get beat inside like that. And the way that Elijah Sarratt set this dude up and just broke right inside, beautiful ball from Fernando, was just a perfectly executed route, perfectly executed release, and the throw. It just, everything about it, everything about the pass game was just unbelievable in this one. So credit to the offense on that one. Let's get to some of the defensive stuff here. I mean, three guys in particular that stood out to me on the defensive side of the ball: Mario Blandino, Isaiah Jones, and Tyreek Tucker. Like, kind of unsung heroes, throughout the year, really. I mean, Blandino is just in his second year. Isaiah Jones is really in his second year playing. And then Tyreek Tucker, obviously just second year with the program, but is an experienced dude in this defense. He's a guy let's start with Tucker. Ended up with 2 sacks in this game. And now a lot of that is because they could not run the ball at all. And so some of these sacks are coming on first and second down. Again, they had 2 yards rushing in this game. Luke Altmaier was sacked 7 times in this game. They could not run the football. It's just, they weren't even really trying at one point. It became to a point where they just kind of gave up on it. I mean, Caden Fagan had 5 carries in this game. Valentine had 6 carries in this game. It was a non-factor. So, and a lot of that is because of the push the defensive line was getting. The game plan that Coach Haynes put into play, thought was phenomenal again. And then individual efforts like Tucker. I mean, collapsing and creating havoc in the backfield on some of those run plays. And then Blandino was an absolute wrecking ball in this game. 2 sacks in this game for him as well. Best game we've ever seen him play in an Indiana uniform. Isaiah Jones, my goodness. Let's just go into this one here. He had a tackle for loss on a gadget play, right? It was a receiver coming from the opposite side. They give him a little pitch. He fights through 2 different blockers to end up making the tackle. Isaiah Jones was fantastic. Very next play, he's on the backside of a run away from him. He comes screaming around the edge from the backside and tracks down Fagan, all 6'3", 240 pounds of him, as Fagan had just gotten to the edge and was like about to start generating some speed. Ankle tackle from Isaiah Jones. That was just phenomenal. A couple of drives later, Indiana's got a simulated pressure look here where they've got Fisher and Jones lined up in the A gaps, right? Essentially right over each shoulder of the center. And at the snap of the ball, Fish backs out and Isaiah Jones is bringing some pressure. And that look of Fisher backing out, it causes the center to hesitate a little bit. And so gives Jones a little bit of a free pathway through that A gap. Fagan is supposed to come up there from his running back spot and kind of fill that gap and provide that pass protection right there. But he was no match for Isaiah Jones on that play, and he gets through for a sack. So just a ton of credit to Isaiah Jones. I had him on my Under the Hood show for IU last week. Just a fun player to get to know. He's really coming into his own right now, and Indiana's playing 3 linebackers a little bit more than they have a year ago. Certainly feels like it, at least to me at this point. So he and Elijah Hardy, being that good right now and kind of continuing those steps in their development alongside Aiden Fisher, really fun to watch. A couple more things. Lou Moore, I thought, had a fantastic game with open field tackling. I know there's some things coming up with his eligibility that we're going to find out a little bit more from coming up here. But I thought he was excellent with some open field tackles. He had one on Hank Beatty on that same drive that I was talking about with the Jones sack. Okay, the miscommunication. Let's get to that here real quick on the touchdown for Illinois. And again, we could say touchdown because it was their only one. D'Angelo Pons is carrying that deep route and looks like he feels like he's got help from Farrell in that deep middle third to kind of pass that off, because there's a crosser coming underneath that deep post that is starting to work his way into D'Angelo Pons' area. And so he comes off of the deep route to settle in on that crosser. And there was just nobody. Farrell wasn't back there. And so there was some kind of miscommunication there. They'll get that sorted out. But that stuff has happened a couple of times now. That stuff's been put out on tape a couple of times now, as Coach Cignetti said. So that has to get remedied coming in here. I thought Hosea Wheeler, again, had a nice day from the defensive tackle standpoint. He beat a double team a couple of times, especially on the one backed up into their own end zone. Felt like we were going to get that safety. I mean, a number of different plays on that drive where they were backed all the way up inside their own 5-yard line. They had a couple of holding calls on that one. And I mentioned the near pick six for Boykin at the end of the half. Gosh, Lou Moore should have had one on the first drive of the second half. They had two pick sixes on those drives, and so much so on the Boykin one at the end of the first half. Like Altmaier knew, like he thought it was going to be like he started running towards the tackle before the ball even reached Boykin, and then Boykin was unable to control it. But man, and then just watching the waves of disruption from this defense on the first level and the second level. Like the first level comes through there and they cause so much havoc and disruption that just leaves a void for the second level linebackers and guys like that to kind of create and pick up all the pieces and just to take care of business and clean up all the mess. It was like carnage watching this defense out there and create so much disruption there. So a lot of fun there to watch that defense. And there's just so, I mean, like I could go down every play and every performance. Like there was just so much to like on both sides of the ball that it was just incredible work. Still in awe of that performance. All right, let's talk Iowa here quickly. Physical, tough, and disciplined. Everything you've come to know about an Iowa team, they are still that, right? They're going to run the quarterback. That's going to be the biggest difference in what this offense feels like for Iowa teams that Indiana's faced in the past. Mark Gronowski is going to run the football. I think he ran the ball 11 times in this game, had 3 rushing touchdowns, including the last 2 touchdowns in their game against Rutgers, which they went in and won in Piscataway on the road. So that is obviously something Indiana's got to be prepared for, dealing with a running quarterback. And it's not like he's an athlete, but he is a physical athlete. He is not necessarily your jitterbug type of quarterback who's going to get out there and make guys miss a bunch. He is going to put his foot in the ground, get upfield, and he's going to, he's tough to bring down. Let's put it that way. He's a competitor. This guy's won national championships at the FCS level. He's not the natural thrower that Fernando Mendoza is by any means. So they are not a throw it down the field type of offense from the pocket. The majority of their throws will come off play action. They will come with an average depth of target less than 5 yards, and then they'll try to turn those into bigger plays. But dealing with play action will be a big point of emphasis in this game for Indiana, right? Got to have your eyes in the right place. Got to understand the discipline. Got to understand keys and that sort of thing. And then, for these linebackers to, once they see it's passed, then to get back, and understand where they have to be, to defend their specific responsibilities. So defending play action, defending quarterback run will be big in this game. This is not the tailback driven run game that we saw in the last year or two for Iowa with Caleb Johnson, who's now a rookie in the NFL for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kamari Moulton's a good player, but not on Johnson's level. And so the offense doesn't feel like it is geared towards, just giving him the ball 20, 22 times a game. This is, again, this is more quarterback driven to me. So that's kind of what they look like on the offensive side of the ball. From a defensive perspective, watch out for Max Llewellyn. To me, he is a guy that has to be dealt with, right? Probably even more so of a force for Indiana to deal with than Akis was for Illinois. Llewellyn is a high motor guy. He is a highly skilled guy, maybe not quite the twitchy athlete off the edge as some top level edge rushers in this conference or in the country. But man, he's a tough physical discipline player. He comes in with the pressure on Ethan Kaliakmanis at the end of the game that kind of forces the turnover, ended up calling it an interception. And then Iowa went down and scored on that. So he's a guy that can be a closer off the edge. He's got great power. So that's kind of something to watch. They do run a fair amount of cover 3 and cover 4 looks, some version of cover 4. Sometimes it's just on one side of the field. Now, one thing they did in this game against Rutgers, which they went in there and won, as I mentioned, is they kind of changed things up a little bit in the second half. They ran a lot of 2-man, right, which is man coverage with 2 deep safeties, because Rutgers was kind of airing it out a little bit on them and had taken a bunch of deep shots. So that's one area where I think they can be a little bit vulnerable, is one-on-one matchups down the field. And that's where Omar Cooper and Elijah Sarratt and EJ Williams and that whole crew can, if they could beat them, if they're playing tight man coverage, you beat them off the line. Fernando's been lethal down the field the last couple of weeks. So that's something that I would watch out for. But those are just a couple of notes there on Iowa as we look forward to that game. Look, certainly wasn't a game to remember last time we were at Kinnick Stadium. But this is a great test for the mental fortitude of this team, right? For the focus of this team. And this is an area where we see the expertise of Curt Cignetti, right? To stay focused, to stay poised, to stay focused to the task at hand. It's a play-to-play thing, right? It's a rep-to-rep thing. And, Illinois was fun. And now they've got to get this thing, turn the page, and get rolling on to Iowa. And I think that Coach Cignetti, the way that he built this program, this team is built for weeks like this, right? To where you had a great performance, great, put it behind you, and now let's go make it 2 in a row, right? Let's go make it, or in this case, 5 in a row. But I think that's the worry, and I think that's maybe some of the national conversation now is can Indiana, put back-to-back games together like that against quality Big Ten opponents? I think, to me, the answer is yes. But it'll take their best effort yet, no question, in that environment at Kinnick Stadium. So fired up for that one. But man, this is I want to bring Peter on, see if you have any further comments or questions from the Iowa week or from the Illinois week as we look ahead to Iowa. Anything that is standing out to you, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, I literally was just about to say, I was watching the Cignetti press conference yesterday, and he was like, obviously, great game. He's like, we can't get too complacent. We got a tough Iowa game. That's every game counts from now on. It's that next week mentality, next game mentality. It's so important. That leadership. It's really easy to have, to think you're invincible.
Yeah,
beating a team by 53, the number 9 team in the country. So you just brought it up, but how important is that?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And again, that comes down to your foundational values as a program, right? They expected to go in and beat Illinois that way. I'm just telling you, I got to Bloomington on Friday, Peter, and spent some time, around the football facility and just kind of talking to folks. And they expected this kind of result. Like, they thought that they were going to, with preparation and with the execution that they'd seen all week and what they know this team was capable of, there was an expectation that they were going to dominate this game and to dominate this opponent, right? And so that expectation, again, is built on focus. It's built on understanding your preparation week in and week out, and what you have to do to win. And that, to me, was really impressive, right? And so I think if you go back and you look at what Coach Sig wants this team to be, right? The toughness, right? The disciplined aspect of, how he builds this team, not getting too high, not getting too low. Like this game, like this Curt Cignetti team, this program is built for a week to week kind of situation like this, right? Where you have a big win and then you're able to flush it and move forward and then just put all of your focus on bringing that same kind of effort and execution into Iowa. So I think that this is where we see the beauty of Coach Cignetti as a head coach in these weeks, right? Where you need to kind of keep that focus on the here and now. And so I think it's a great point, Peter. And I think that's what Curt Cignetti does, man. Every opponent, nameless, faceless, get out there and get a win again. And so I think that's certainly what they will aim to do this week against Iowa. So a lot of fun. Thanks to everybody who came in and hung out with us and at Tracks on Friday night with Galen and I at Crimson Cast. And we'll look to do some more of those things for you down the road. But thanks to everybody who came up and said you've been enjoying the show at the stadium. Enjoyed talking to you guys. And we'll have another episode coming up for you next week following the Iowa game. So get out there and support your Hoosiers and go IU.